My name is Marc Girardelli. I'm Austrian, raced for Luxembourg. I am a 5-time overall World Cup winner. And for everybody who doesn't know what is a World Cup in skiing, it's more like the Super Bowl in football, and I am the only one who won it 5 times. I was originally Austrian, living in Austria, but I was racing for Luxembourg. The reason was that as a child I made the first years of racing for Austria, but there were soon some controversy with the officials of the federation and also with trainers and family members of other racers, because I was not coming out of a skiing village in Austria. I was coming from the flatlands, and that was absolutely something new for them. And the worst of all was that I won all the children's races too. And so I thought there is no reason to ski slower, just to have a good mood from my rivals. And then my parents decided to change the federation to Luxembourg. When I started racing for Luxembourg with the age of 13 years, it was a little different than usual racers, because I had a very small federation behind me, so more or less my father and myself. Maybe later with the rep from the ski company, we were a team of 3 persons, and we had to combat, we have to battle nations like USA, like Austria, like Switzerland, like Italy. And that was definitely a problem, especially later on in downhill, where you need a lot of people. They work at this very difficult and dangerous discipline. And that was maybe also the reason, after I won a lot of races in the technical discipline, when I entered into downhill racing with the age of 19 years, that after only 3 downhills I got an injury very seriously, very bad in Lake Louise. But even in that moment, in my worst moment of my career, I was lucky enough to get a tip to come down to Lake Tahoe then to visit Dr. Stedman. He was there then the national team doctor of the US ski team with Steve and Phil Mayer and all these racers. And I think he made a really, really good job on me, and I could continue with my career more or less like before this serious injury. And I thank him even 30 years later very much that he saved my career in that very moment. The goal of every racer, it doesn't matter if he's skiing slalom or downhill, is to win once a World Cup race. My big moment was in 1983 in Sweden, in Gällivare, when I could win a slalom against Denmark and Phil Mayer and Andy Wenzel and the best racers in that time. All the good ones arrived in the finish area, and I could make 2 times best time in slalom and win with a big margin in front of the best racers then. I think this was one of my greatest moments in my life, and I watch it even sometimes on YouTube, because I really like to remember back almost 35 years. After I set up in the technical discipline in slalom and GS, and I was very successful the first years of my career, even after my big fall in Lake Louise, my really big goal was to combat the big nations in downhill, because downhill is maybe the king-size discipline of the alpine skiing, and nobody can be actually the king if he doesn't win at least 1 downhill. My big moment then was in 1989. In the previous years I could manage to become several times 2nd and 3rd, but unfortunately I couldn't manage to win a race till then. In '89 we arrived in Kitzbühel, and after a first inspection I really told my father, "Hey Dad, I think this downhill is too dangerous for me this time." And I really was about to quit and go on the training hill for training slalom, because it was so dangerous and ugly looking with these steep hills and icy pistes that it seemed to me absolutely impossible for me to come down to the finish area without any injury. And at least he could convince me to make at least 1 or 2 training runs on the safe side, and the end of the story was that I won the first race, and the second race I could become 2nd, only 700 behind the winner of Swiss guy. And I think that is maybe a very big moment in my career, when I was able to win the most difficult, the most dangerous downhill in the world, the strive at the Hahnenkamm race against the big nations who has 20, 30 people to support them. We were only 3 people on the course. So as I won Kitzbühel for the first time, and the next weekend was the second big highlight of the season. It was the Lauberhorn in Wengen, and everybody who is a downhiller, he just has to say, I won Kitzbühel or I won the Lauberhorn, and nobody else will any more ask some questions about the downhill, because everybody knows these are the most famous, the most difficult downhills in the whole world, and if you manage to win one of them, everything is said that you are a true downhiller. Arriving in Wengen, it was another double downhill, followed by a slalom on Sunday. I was in the form of my life, and I had a very special situation there, because the last two turns before the finish, it was so icy, and after 2.5 minutes of race, you were so tired that you hardly can stand on your skis, and it is always very, very difficult to manage to make these last two turns before the finish without losing too much time, because you are no more able to make a real clean turn on the edge. This caused me to inspect these two last turns a little more precise, and I saw just about 3-4 meters on the left side of the first turn, I saw a marvelous, nice powder slope, and then I was inspecting this situation about half an hour. All the racers were inspecting me. What is Girardelli doing? He again does things differently than everybody else. So it was like that. I decided, without any training before this last race, to change the line at the last two turns. And this change of the line caused me to be 7/10, almost 1 second faster than the second fastest in this race, in this section, and to win the race with 2 seconds ahead. I think this, after Kitzbühel, the Hahnenkamm, is maybe one of the biggest successes of my career. And still now, more than 20 years later, people ask me about this fabulous downhill I had that day. I think not only the change from Austria to Luxembourg was different, what I made to my biggest rival. It was also the skiing, the strategy, the training, and the handling of the World Cup career throughout my whole life. And I think being a small team like we were, with 2 or 3 persons, it needs to be different than the rest, because you have to take care about so many different other things than a usual athlete, that you are forced to make other ways, shortcuts, more efficiency in training, and so on. I think this is a wire throughout my whole life, and even after my career, I could be successful with this kind of attitude, personal attitude. During my racing career, I can say one of the most important things what I found out is that you have really to have a goal, and you have to follow the goal with 100% of your energy. And it doesn't matter if you have some problems and difficulties on the way to reach the goal. It is absolutely important to follow, to overcome these problems and these difficulties, because they will not disappear if you just change the way. They will come to at the further moment in the same way, and you are forced to overcome, to solve problems like this if you really want to be the best of the world. This is also a case I always explain in my speeches, I have in my lectures, what I do a lot in Europe. I think especially for business people, it is a must to focus on a goal and not throw the towel like weak boxers in the ring. Apart from sport and business, for sure, my family life is the most important in my life ever. For 40 years I had no family, I had only the job, and I followed my job with every hair which remained on my head. But my family, I have 4 kids, Alexander with 20 years, Caroline with almost 13 years, Iman with 9 years, and Tamina, the smallest one, who just had birthday today. I call them on Skype, and I think I am really happy to have such a splendid and fabulous family life. My wife Andrea is working hard, and everybody who is married knows when you're married, the most important thing is that your wife is occupied with a lot of work. So you can have a little free time in your family evening and watch your own TV channels, not the channels of your wife. That, I think, is very important. So I'm very happy to speak to you today. My business activities in the moment are diverse, very diversified. And if you really want to find me in the web, you just Google my name or you go on marcgirardelli.com. You will find me very easy. I'm very happy to be contacted by the Snow Magazine, making this interview here by Barbara Sanders. And I hope you have a good winter without any injuries, a lot of fun and a lot of fresh snow. Thanks a lot.